For everybody who's here, welcome. This is an event hosted by the CSUF Startup Incubator. If you don't know us all that well, what we do at the incubator is we help usually first-time entrepreneurs, people who have an idea and have hopefully made some progress on launching their business, and help them really get from that concept stage to launch. And we work with them over the course of a 6-month period of time. Meet with them once a week. One of our mentors or coaches will meet with them and help them really figure out how to launch their business and get into revenue. And that's pretty much what we do. Beyond that, the incubator is hosted by the Center for Entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton. We've been around for a little over 20 years now. So I think that everybody who's here is probably a little bit older than that, but not by much. And we have a series of courses there, from everything from lean startup to operations, to marketing, to leadership, and also a couple of courses where people create their own business plans and launch their businesses. So we've been doing that again for about 2 decades now, and we host these events for the public so that people can get to know a wide range of topics from some of our experts in our community, and hopefully build up some skills and build out their network as entrepreneurs. And so, Victor, is that everything, or did I miss something?
No, you nailed it.
All right. So, Victor, you're going to be talking with us today about what?
Yeah, today I'm going to be talking about a very critical part about entrepreneurship called the MVP, the minimum viable product. It's a step that if skipped, you greatly increase your risk in business. So my goal is to share the why, the how, but also share personal examples and that I've done through businesses that I've started, and answer some questions along the way. Here, let me share my screen really quick.
And Victor, would it be all right if I or somebody in the audience asks you questions during, or do you want us to hold off our questions to the very end?
No, if you have questions during, feel free. Think of this as a kind of like a discussion more than a lecture. So feel free to jump in.
Sounds good.
All right. Can you see my slideshow?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so crafting your minimum viable product for startup success. Today, we're going to be covering a couple of things. One is, what is an MVP? Why does it matter? How to validate it, and how to actually some tools to create your own. So step one is, I want to express and share the underlying principles, and then teach you how to build if you want to build your own. So who the heck am I? I'm an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience. I like to say I've been an entrepreneur since I was 6 years old, selling candy door to door. I've started a couple of companies, one being a low-carb cookie company that we were able to scale very quickly. And today I am the founder and CEO of Santana Snacks, where we make organic snacks inspired by Mexican street food. I'm also a mentor here at the Startup Incubator. And let me get a little deeper into these concepts. I'm going to share with you how these principles applied here. So this is actually a startup I started while I was in college at Cal State Fullerton. And it's where I learned the whole concept of what's now known as influencer marketing. So I was able to understand sponsorship deals, advertising, how to drive traffic to a website, but also how to start with, I think I started this with about $200 out of my pocket. Then it was the low carb cookie company. And that was, we sold primarily online through Amazon, through our website. And we started with an MVP, which I'll share in a couple of slides how we did that. And this is the organic snack brand. So like I said, my goal is to really show you some real life applications to how these principles work. But first, what is the biggest entrepreneurial tragedy? In my opinion, it's spending months and a lot of cash to build something that nobody wants, right? In our hearts, we know this is the right thing. our savings. We spend months building, and then crickets. And the reason why it's crickets is that we haven't done a lot of the upfront work of researching and testing our idea at a very simple and low cost approach so that we can then see what works and scale from there. An MVP is basically the basic version of a product that meets the minimum necessary requirements. If you want to build an app with 20 features, your MVP is the 3 that are critical for its use, right? So it's the minimum requirement so that you can test and learn. So one thing about entrepreneurship that's really shifted my mind is thinking about everything as an experiment, right? It's the scientific method. How do we test, see what works, and adapt? Test, see what works, and adjust. Even the big boys started with MVPs. This is one of my favorite MVP examples. Amazon, as we know, is everywhere, but they started off as a bookstore, and not even a beautifully designed bookstore at that. It came from Jeff Bezos reading a report about how, like, the trend of internet adoption, how it was going to grow, and he decided to start testing with books. Instagram was an Instagram right away. It was bourbon. It was an app. It had a lot of the same functionalities that Instagram has now, but it was much more stripped down, not as polished, and nobody really knew it existed until it became Instagram. But they did learn a lot through that MVP process. Airbnb looks a lot different then than it does now. But basically, they started testing this concept of if people would rent out their home and if people would adopt that methodology instead of going to a hotel. So I believe they started with friends and family first and marketed that, and based on that demand they were able to see that there was something there. So why do we develop an MVP? Well, at first, and the most important reason, is to test, to learn, and to iterate quickly. It reduces your risk and your costs by first identifying customer needs before full-scale development. I think that the most valuable part about an MVP is that it allows you to see if your solution will solve the problem that your customers are facing. Because as entrepreneurs, we're in the business of solving problems. So by seeing what customers have a pain and seeing if your MVP solves it, you are able to start to hone in on what's called product market fit. And it allows you to focus on the essential features. I talk to entrepreneurs and startup founders almost every day. A very common thing that many of them face is overwhelm or trying to do everything. An MVP will help you focus on the things that matter. It'll help you prioritize. The process, like I said, is very similar to the scientific method. You have a hypothesis, you build, you measure, you learn. You take what you learn and you build again. So you keep refining the process. Nui Foods, which at first started off as a low-carb pudding. Okay, so my friend and I went on this thing called the keto diet. And he lost a bunch of weight. I lost a bunch of weight. We felt really good, but we were missing sweets. We wondered, would anybody want a low-carb treat in this space? So we go into his mom's kitchen. We start making a pudding. It doesn't really come across the way we wanted, and we end up pivoting to cookies. Right, so this is the first summer in his mom's kitchen where we started making cookies. And what we ended up doing, so this was our MVP, right? A cookie, we reverse engineered a cookie. We said, all right, how do we take out the junk? How do we replace it with better stuff, right? Flour with almond flour, sugar with monk fruit. And we created this thing that tasted really, really good. He liked it, I liked it, his mom liked it, but we didn't know if we actually had a market. So what we ended up doing is over a weekend, we said, all right, let's test this. So I created a one-page website, which I'll show you the tools that you can use to create your own. We titled it The World's First Keto Cookie. And we had a simple button for PayPal. And I don't remember how much we charged for them, but we put a button for PayPal. We said, okay, if we sell 10, 15, maybe we got something. Over the weekend, we got over 30 orders. That MVP showed us that there was a market. And that eventually became this. So one critical thing that I want you guys to get from this is business in general is a constant evolution, right? You saw how Amazon started. This here eventually was reformulated and eventually became this here. So how do we validate an MVP? Well, first we start by defining a target audience. We develop a clear value proposition, which is just technical speak for what makes you unique, what makes you better than the competition. We identify the essential features that are needed to solve the problem that you want to solve. Then we design and develop the MVP. Like I said, there's tools that I'll show you that you can use. Then you deploy the MVP to a small group of users. So it could be, think of it almost like a focus group where you can actually test this MVP and get real life user feedback. For us, it was sending samples of cookies out to influencers and getting their feedback, right? Some of us told, hey, this ingredient that you have here, guys, it's a no-no in this space. You know what? I like the cookie, but there's too much fat. The first bags we sent out, all the fat and the oil seeped through the bags. So we learned through our MVP, we needed to reformulate. You collect, you analyze user feedback, iterate and improve, and then you repeat. So let's go a little deeper. How do you define a target market? Step one is to really understand that not everyone is your customer, and they shouldn't be. A very quick way to failure is to try to help and please everyone at the same time. So when it comes to your MVP, try to think about segments. What specific group of people are facing a problem that your MVP can solve? So when we were starting the cookie company, it wasn't health-minded individuals. It was people following the keto diet. But more than that is we wanted it to understand who are the early adopters, who are the people that will cross the street in traffic to go buy your product. And for us, it ended up being a subsegment of the keto group called biohackers. These were folks that would wear continuous glucose monitors that folks with diabetes usually have, but they wore them so that anytime they ate food, they could see what happened to their blood sugar, right? They had tons of disposable income. They didn't care how much they spent on food as long as it was like if it was helping them meet their health markers. So try to think about your idea and who is your ideal early adopter, and and through this process, you will get a clearer understanding of who that is.
So Victor, when you're trying to figure out who that ideal customer is, are you thinking in terms of trying to make that group as small as possible and as targeted as possible?
In the very beginning, yes. I want to start with a small group of people that can give me feedback for me to refine. And when I say small, I'm talking about like around 50 people, 50 to 100, right? So I'm looking at, for example, let's transition over to organic chips. My customers right now, the macro level is people who like healthy snacks, but I have a subsegment which it resonates specifically with the snack that I'm creating, and that's called the bicultural Latino, which is folks born in Latin America. They're the first generation born here. So what I'm doing is I have actually done like taste tests with 100 people. From that, I'm learning and understanding which specific group of that would be my early adopter. Why this matters is it's going to help you with marketing down the road. You're going to know who to talk to and what specific language to use as well. Question?
No, that's good. And I'm just thinking of it in terms of just from like an operational standpoint. I mean, you don't have that many resources early on, so it probably makes sense to focus on a very small subset of what will eventually become your overall market, right?
Totally. And I mean, depending on the industry that you're in, right? If you're launching an app, something you can do is you can actually have people try your beta version, but rather than just have them try it and come back and give you feedback, you can do screen recordings. You can ask if you can look over their shoulder while they're using your app. I gave a talk last week, and there was this gentleman that's creating an app that is designed to replace another app called Flutter. And it's basically it will allow you to code very easily. And at first, his assumptions were, well, people aren't using this app. It's like it's free. I'm letting people use like what's going on. So he assumed that it was something wrong with his app initially. But what he learned through the MVP process, through interviews, through watching how people used his app, that the issue was there was no simple way to transition from Flutter to his app. So if somebody wanted to start a project on his app, they had to start from scratch. So there was what is called a switching cost. So what he is doing now, based on this feedback, is he is creating a one-click transition button where now you can transfer your projects from Flutter to his app. And he's taking that learning, and then he's going to see what the adoption rates are. So that's an example of how we can take this knowledge and continue to improve it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So why do we validate? Why do we do what we just talked about? Why do we test? And it's about reducing risk. It's about when you're starting off, usually as a solopreneur, your resources are limited, especially if you have a day job, you have a family. So you need to find out what works. Doing this saves a lot of energy. You can ensure product market fit. A lot of what I've found is a lot of our early adopters came through this process, or a lot of our early customers came from this process. So when we were launching cookies, we first started working with, it was about 20 influencers that we were just getting feedback from. They were the ones that became evangelists and spread the word, which helped us grow, right? So these early adopters became our customers and became our evangelists. It can help guide future development, like I just talked about with that app example. This feedback helps you go left when maybe you're thinking of going right. And we do this through conducting testing. There's a couple of ways to do it. One was what I talked about with the app. You can do screen recordings. The others, you can do product taste tests. There's also, you can do interviews, focus groups. When you're starting off on this process, even if you don't have a prototype ready, I believe it's very important to conduct customer interviews. And an interview versus a survey, an interview tends to be more open-ended. You're trying to understand what problems people are facing. So when I was looking at starting my latest startup in the snack world, I actually didn't know that I was going to make organic chips. What I did know was that there was a pain point, specifically in the first gen market. Obesity, diabetes, metabolic health is a very big issue. There's a lot of challenges there. So I started talking to people, and then I started interviewing people and saying, hey, one, are you feeling this pain? Why are you feeling this pain? Well, because I really enjoy junk food and it's hard to give up junk food. Okay. Then I asked if there was one type of one type of food, junk food, that we could make healthy, what would it be? Initially, I thought I was going to make candy. About 70% of the people said chips. If you could make chips cleaner for you, healthier for you, I would buy chips. Cool. Chips. Now, of these chips, this was like let's say phase 2 of this process. Okay, great. What are the elements that you care about in a healthy chip? Do you want it to be all natural, organic? Do you want it to be have like avocado oil, right? Do you care about these things? What is your flavor profile? Do you want spicy, right? So I took all of this and I pretty much reverse engineered all of this to get to the point where now I'm offering an organic chip with sea salt to start, with salsa verde, and with chili lime. Is it guaranteed? No. But do I feel like I have a better shot at success? Yes. And that's what happens through this understanding and user testing process. And again, it tends to be something that a lot of entrepreneurs skip because maybe there's a fear of rejection, maybe it's just seen as a waste of time, but it's critical to do this piece. We talked about the types of user testing. The goal is to gather quality feedback. So look at well-defined interviews. I think I have a slide here. There you go. All right. So if you're going to survey people or interview, it's important to set clear objectives. Keep it short and simple. If you're interviewing somebody, I recommend not to record them because when you record people, they tend to put up a wall. So keep the questions open-ended. And I get the most value when you ask why multiple times. So it's like, hey, do are you struggling with your health? Okay, yeah, well, why? What's going on? Like, what do you think? Well, my job, this and that. But honestly, I tend to eat a lot of junk food. Okay, well, tell me why do you struggle with eating junk food? Well, it's so addicting. I love the flavor. So basically, you can ask why until you get to a root cause. And over time, you're going to see a commonality in these root causes, which will help you refine your MVP. You can also offer incentives. I ended up, so with the snack brand, we did this campaign where we're offering samples if people refer enough people to our email list. We got a little over 20,000 people to sign up, but I wanted to understand my market further. So I offered a select group a $5 Starbucks gift card if they would do an interview with me. And I was able to get like 25 interviews before I had to stop it. And it was more of a resource thing. I didn't want to keep spending money after I had already gotten kind of the knowledge that I needed. We
So
iterate.
Victor, quick question.
Yeah.
How much time early on do you think you should spend with those customer interviews? And when I say that, I mean like the in-person interviews, over the phone, creating surveys that you're going to send out. How much of your time should you dedicate to that?
I'd say at least 25 to 30 minutes per interview. All right. And I think it's JJ who heads the Center for Entrepreneurship that says you don't really know your customer until you've spoken with 100 people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It might seem like a daunting number. Start with 25 people, but it's really in the beginning. It's a lot of hours that you should spend, but it'll save you so many headaches in the end, and will increase your chance of success.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, 20 to 30 minutes. I mean, that's about, and if you reach out to 100 people and you talk with them, I mean, that's 50 hours and you spread that over the course of like what, a month, 2 months?
Yep.
So that's doable. And this is something that you want to keep on doing throughout the entirety of your business, right?
Exactly. Eventually, it could be having one-on-one phone calls, or it could also be customer service feedback, right? It's what are people saying, and then that's that feedback loop that helps you continue to improve on your business.
Gotcha. Thank you.
For sure. All right. Then we test. Like I said, we test with a small group of potential customers. You may not know who these people are in the beginning. That's why you're doing this. You might have a general idea, and through this process, you will get a clearer idea of who your customer is. So how do we build? Any questions before we get into more of the tactical stuff here? All right. Okay, so step one is it could just be as simple as paper and a pencil, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to mock up a potential solution to a problem to see if it will solve said problem. So you can use a paper and a pencil. There's also mock-up and prototyping tools. We can send this deck out. I'm not going to go over every specific tool. I just want to share the types of tools that are out there. Like I said, paper and pen, you can sketch. You can use a tool like Figma, which allows you to design mock-ups. You can pay somebody on Fiverr $25 to design a mock-up of what you're working on. I mean, now this might be a Travis question. We can use AI to create some kind of a mock-up. What tools are available to design mock-ups for our potential solutions?
So there's a number of different tools that are out there. If you have a ChatGPT subscription, it has a whole suite of different tools that you could use. And some of them do include mock-up tools that can help you with that. I haven't used them extensively, I just more see what they're about. But if you're looking for tools that could help you brainstorm or do some basic research into a market or into just business in general, ChatGPT is a great one. Perplexity is also very good. And then there's a whole host of other tools that are out there as well.
Great. And simple ways that you can use these tools are you can create, let's say you're interested in creating a food product or a CPG product. You can use some of these tools to mock up what a product would look like. You can put that on a one-page website, some headline copy, some body copy, and a place for people to enter their email. Now you advertise that, you spend a little bit of money, $50 on Facebook or on Reddit, and you see how many people sign up, right? Let's say you have 5 ideas. You can do that and split test them. So there's different ways that you can do it. In terms of like sketching, I once, many years ago, I had this idea to create so rustic weddings were in for a long time. And I created this rustic bow tie, and it was like these hard, rare woods where you would wear it like with a suit, right? It was just very different, like a novelty item. I didn't spend any money making the product. What I did is I created a mock-up of what it would look like. I found a similar bow tie that could have been it. I created a post on social media. I said, here's what I'm thinking about making. If I sell 10, so here's a PayPal button. I forgot what I charged. If I sell 10, I'll go into production. If not, I'll give you your money back. I sold 25. I used that money to do our first product run, and I was able to build something fun from that. But that all started from a simple sketch, no inventory, no product, just something to see if people wanted it. Okay, that's a prototyping tool. A website, right? Web development. You can use a tool like WordPress. Now it's so simple to set up a WordPress website. You can go on to GoDaddy and click a button, and now you have a website. There's ghost.org, there's Wix. So you can use, if you wanted to test a concept, you can do it on there. Travis and I are actually working on an MVP for a product that maybe we'll talk about later, but we're using a very simple website. We're creating content based on AI on a certain topic, and we're going to drive traffic to it. From there, we're going to learn and continue to evolve. If you want to develop an app, there's tools like Flutter, React Native. What's great about a lot of these tools is you don't have to be a developer, right? You can build this stuff on your own just to see. We did a talk, a boot camp about a year ago with some students, and there was this guy who was really good at graphic design, but he didn't know how to code, and he had this app that was going to be like kind of like a food review app, but it was five screens. And he said, okay, step 1, log in. Step 2, this happens. Step 3, that happens. And he would swipe on his phone across images. And that was enough for him to get him grants, to get accepted into different programs, just because he was able to convey his idea through this mock-up. You can build a landing page now. Like I mentioned, our cookie was created from a simple one-page landing page. Now it's so much easier. You just sign up for a product like Lead Pages, and you can test your concept. Survey user feedback tools, Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Typeform. Whatever it is, these are tools. The underlying principles still matter. It's create something that's simple, find people that are potentially interested, and get feedback and continue to refine. One more thing that I want to add is if you want true feedback, is ask for the sale. If you approach somebody right now with an idea and say, hey, would you buy this? a lot of people, especially if they're your friends or your family, are going to say yes. But the moment you ask them to pull out their wallet is when you're going to see if they're really interested. So the men's lifestyle magazine that I was talking about, it started at first as an ebook. I was taking a class at Cal State Fullerton, being a very impatient entrepreneur. And I wanted to see, and a broke entrepreneur, and I wanted to see if I can make something work. So I went online and I saw that there was a bunch of guys asking questions about style and grooming, stuff that was very taboo, right? Things that you wouldn't ask like another girl or somebody else because you were just kind of embarrassed to ask. But they were asking about like, how does this outfit look on me? How does this hair look? What skincare cream should I use? So I went through this forum and I wrote down the most commonly asked questions that people had about men's grooming. I put them into like a table of contents. And then I found a lady who, through what is now called Upwork, back then it was called Elance. I paid her like $100, $150, and she helped me write an ebook called The Men's Grooming Handbook. I took that book. I hired a company in India to develop a one-page website. I put some copy and I started marketing it. I remember being in class and getting an email, $9.95, $9.95, $9.95. It showed me that people were interested in this topic of men's grooming. That book ended up being the catalyst for what became Male Standard, right? So it was this simple MVP process, and I asked for money up front, and it became something bigger later. Some more example MVPs. This is probably one of my favorite. So Zappos, if you guys don't know, they sell shoes online. They were the first people to really do it successfully. The founder had an idea of selling shoes online, but didn't know if people were willing to pay. So he went around local shoe shops and said, listen, if you let me take a picture of your inventory, I'll put it on my website. And if it sells, I'll come back here and I will pay you full price. He was actually losing money on his first orders. But what it showed him was that there was a market, there was demand. He was able to validate his business with just a simple idea and no inventory. Dropbox. Dropbox started off as a simple video. The app wasn't even built. It was a simple one-page website with the video and a play button. And it showed this. It was basically one folder showing people how you can drag things to that folder. And now it was a shared experience. Underneath that, it had an email, like a place to enter your email. I think they got like 70,000 people to join their email list. That was validation for them to move forward and continue to build. Facebook, I'm sure you guys have heard this story, but they started off as the Facebook, and their MVP was just Harvard University. They started with one school, expanded to more schools, and then expanded globally. When doing this, start looking at the feedback that you're getting. So you can look at certain like metrics. I wouldn't look at, I know I listed here customer acquisition costs, but as I'm looking through, the most important would be user engagement. So if somebody is showing up to your one-page website, how many of them are actually giving you their email address? What percentage of the people that visit your website stay? What percentage convert into an actual lead? This applies across different industries. For the chips, I had a one-page website where I was offering samples, and I noticed that as people signed up, 2 to 3 people, like they would share with 2 to 3 people. This like viral thing happened. And by looking at the metrics, I was able to see that there was something there. Then you analyze and interpret the data. Don't overthink this. Keep it simple. Just look at what metrics matter to you. Is there demand? Are people willing to pay? Are they spreading the word? Then you can create a roadmap. There's a tool that I like to use is Asana, or you can use Trello, but basically turn all of these ideas into actions and set deadlines, whether it be talk to X amount of people per week, whether it be launch phase 1 of my product, have it somewhere visible. I like Asana because it allows me to collaborate with different people on my team. And that is basically the process of creating your MVP. Don't overthink it. Treat it as a science experiment. It will change over time. Prioritize learning. I guess I'd like to leave you guys with one quick story. In college, I had this idea that I thought was going to change the world. It was this website that was going to allow personal trainers to train their clients online. As far as I knew, it was a very novel idea at the time. So I took my savings, which seems to be a common thread. I took all my savings and I found a team of developers. I went all in and I found a team of developers in India to design this website. It was called eFitness Solution. And in the background, it had all the functionality that I wanted. But as I would look at the website, I would say, you know what? The logo, can we make the logo red? You know what? This nutrition area is really cool, but it would be nice if they could have a grocery list. All right, let's build that. You know, can we add another row here? Can we change the color? Eventually, I ran out of money and the developers stopped responding. I was left with a half-finished product. A few months later, I go online, I find a competitor with like a third of the features that I had. And they were crushing it. They were doing a really, really good job. The moral of the story is I failed, not because I ran out of money, but because I never launched. The reason that I didn't launch was because I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to fail. I was afraid that nobody was going to love my baby that I had spent so much time creating. And I was so afraid of failure that I failed anyway. So if you guys have ideas, things that you're working on, put them out there, even if you don't think they're perfect yet, because a lot of times perfection is a disguise for fear. And that's the presentation. Thoughts, questions?
Thank you very much, Victor. Yeah, when I was listening to your presentation, great job on it. I mean, a couple of thoughts came to my mind, and one of them was that, I mean, this seems like the smart way to start business, right? I mean, you don't have a lot, especially if you don't have a lot of resources and you really need to bootstrap things. You are going to need to start small, and like you said, you know, figure out what works, what doesn't work early on, so that you can focus on those things as you do start to scale eventually down the road. And when you and that'll set you up better for potentially raising money down the road, or maybe you don't even need to. Ideally, you wouldn't even need to. So one of the things that I do on professionally is I'm a co-founder of an investment fund, and you know, pretty much every one of the businesses that we have invested in, they've gone through this process where they start small and they start building it up over time, and by the time they reach out to us, the ones that actually do get investment consideration are the ones that have spent 2, 3, 4, 5 years really proving out the business model, going through the steps that you were talking about here, and have made a good amount of progress. I know that there's some businesses that still get invested in when it's just in the idea stage, but usually not. Usually they have to have quite a bit of traction before they can start getting investment interest.
100%. Agreed. It's an iterative process. I think it was the founder of LinkedIn says entrepreneurship is jumping off a bridge and building a parachute on the way down. Right? It's that. It's build and refine as you go and continue to learn.
100%. Does anybody else have any questions for Victor?
Actually, it's amazing illustration. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor.
No problem. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
So you view this more as just like an evolution, right? So you start small and then you keep on adding stuff on, and it's basically like you're just updating the MVP every time that you go along, right? It's just an iterative process. And eventually, you know, somewhere down the road, maybe it's a couple of years, maybe it's a few years down the road, you look up and you've got a full-fledged product, and maybe it's beyond your wildest dreams when you first started out. Is that a fair way to describe this process?
It is. It is. And now some of it has to do with the amount of funding that you have, right? So if you're completely bootstrapping, your MVP may look a little, well, I mean, with the tools now, not as much, but may be a little less perfect, right? But as you get funding, or if you're starting off with a significant budget, you may be willing to take a little more risk and refine your product more, right? But even so, for example, the chips, the minimum order quantity for chips is pretty high. So I need to know that before I make that order, I've done a lot of this work ahead of time, right? I need to make sure that I have mock-ups, I have samples where I can, I've gotten feedback from people, and that will ensure that I'm more likely to be successful, right? When it was cookies, I could have made a batch in like an hour at home, right? It was very easy to, oh, okay, well, people don't like chocolate chip. Let's make macadamia nut.
Right. Hey, Victor,
Yes.
tell me about what you've learned in regard to the crowdfunding initiative for Santana Snacks and what you would have done differently had you restarted it again.
That's a great question. So I made a lot of assumptions. So I launched recently a crowdfunding campaign for these chips, and it was unsuccessful. I made some assumptions because I have done crowdfunding in the past for the cookie, and that was successful. We raised over $100,000 in the past. So I'm like, oh, well, I know the process. So let me do the process again. The part that I didn't think through was, one is the demographic, right? So keto, while the keto cookie was in the food space, it was a very novel product. We were the first people to ever launch a keto cookie. And people in the space that were in the keto space had a lot of disposable income to work with. So those biohackers that I talked about, they were into tech. They spent a lot of time already on, like, they were familiar with a lot of these Kickstarter platforms. My new brand, my startup is, I'm launching chips, right? As much as I understand and I feel like I'm being innovative in the flavorings and in who I'm serving, I'm selling chips online where people have to wait 2 to 3 months to receive them when they can go to the store and buy chips, right? So there was that component. It was also, I learned through post surveys. So I surveyed people on my list, asking them, like, why didn't you fund? 65% of the people on my list weren't even aware that we were running a crowdfunding campaign. So I could have done much more awareness before. I could have done much more awareness during, and after I should have followed up a lot more. The other was, there was feedback on the price and the value. So on my Kickstarter, we were selling 1-ounce bags for like $5. I learned later through research that the people in the space charge $1 an ounce. So what we've done now is we now are going to sell 5-ounce bags, charging $1 an ounce. So I was able to kind of improve the value that we were given. So I mean, it's been a very, very now blessed process, because I've gotten feedback on pricing, on messaging, on platform, and even on marketing strategy.
Great answer.
Great question.
Thank you for the detailed explanation. Right. So your keto cookie,
Uh-huh.
in the later part of that journey, obviously something went wrong. I know that you talked about it, right? What will you do with Santana Snacks to make sure that that doesn't happen again with your snacks this time?
Oh, totally. So a part that I haven't mentioned, which I'd love to mention, is the keto cookie concept. We started at my friend's mom's kitchen with $3 grand each. Like I mentioned, we grew to 1.7 million in under 2 years. We even got a deal on Shark Tank, but ultimately that business didn't work out. A lot of factors came into it. The first one being we faced a product quality issue. So our contract manufacturer that we worked with, our cookies had too much water in them. It's called water activity. During summer, that turned into mold. That mold cost us, like, we gave thousands of dollars in refunds. Cash was the biggest one in the beginning. Had we had enough cash, I believe we could have pivoted out. But the mistakes were, we didn't raise cash early enough. Number two is we didn't hire a food scientist early enough. So we were still using the recipe from Mom's Kitchen. And that recipe did not translate to being on store shelves, and that we didn't have the shelf life that we needed. Take all that, and then you put the last pin of COVID happening and all investment drying up, and we were left where we didn't pay ourselves for 9 months, doing everything that we could to keep this business afloat. For a while, I said I was done with the food industry, but something kept pulling at me. And this brand here, what I'm doing different is step one is I hired a food scientist. So the people that we worked with, that I built a relationship with in our last company towards the tail end, have helped us find a co-manufacturer that is vetted, that is certified. We have tested, we're doing shelf life testing right now for our product. And number two is I'm spending a lot of time on generating cash, whether it be grants. I want to ramp up to start doing like investor pitches, and we've opened up our store to pre-sales. So we're doing all that because our chips, I've got here about 5,000 bags of chips. These are all test bags. I'm trying to build up anticipation before our first product run arrives to increase our chances of success. There's still, I'm sure, a lot of kicks to the shin that are going to happen, but that's how I'm taking what I learned and applying it to what we're doing now.
So can you speak to me a little bit more about your channel distribution strategy then? Of how you'll get this out there to minimize, extraneous costs?
Yes. So the cookies were about 90% e-commerce. One thing that we're doing very differently this time is we're going to focus very heavily on retail. I went to a presentation recently which shows while the better for you market is increasing online, about 77% of all sales of better for you snacks, which our food falls into, happen online, which means that we're missing out on 93% of the potential market. So our distribution strategy is going to be online in terms of we're going to have our product online, but we're going to be focusing specifically on getting to mom and pop shops first. So that would be, there's platforms online like Range Me or Fair that serves like an Amazon for retail. And as soon as product arrives, we're going to be focusing very heavily on that. In terms of getting the word out, I believe that at a foundational level right now, it's content, right? It's social media content. So I'm in the process of converting my office into like a content studio, and I want to send out content for social at scale. The assumption being that 20% of those videos are going to hit, right? They're going to go viral. Those videos we can turn into ads, but also those videos are what's going to create awareness for retailers. So we envision a place where we have so much awareness that retailers start approaching us and we can build relationships that way.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to poke holes. I'm always here to learn.
Yeah, we should talk offline in regard to your target audience more, but
Yeah.
I would love to do that. I think, again, for the other people that are on this webinar, I'd love to hear more, aside from Shema that had congratulated you. I don't know, I guess I see Steve Chu and King Peking. I don't know if they have any questions or not.
I think Kareem raised his hand, right, Travis? Kareem?
Yeah, Kareem, do you have a question?
Yes. Well, great presentation, you guys. Victor, I know you've mentioned something about your first product didn't go well with when you were doing a lot of refunds and with cash. So for your second venture, do you have a startup financial planning this time? If so, how do you work your financial plan for both your previous startup and this one?
Yeah, definitely. So the way I do have some seed capital this time around. It's not a whole lot. I'm still very much bootstrapping, but it allows me to be able to, for example, the test run that I talked about for the 5,000 bags of chips, that was like $7,000 just to make sure the recipe works, right? There's a lot of branding, a lot of things that come into play. What I do tactically is I have a cash flow forecast that I look at very carefully. And I am focusing, we just started literally like a few days ago on opening up a pre-sale strategy. So how do I get revenue coming in as soon as possible so that I can support the growth of this business? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You said something about your cash flow forecast or your financial forecast. How did you get to build that? Was there like a tool, or are you working with a CFO or like somebody specialized in building these kind of forecasts?
Yeah, a great question. In the beginning, it's very much there's templates online, right? So I'm working with somebody who has a background in accounting, and she gave me this template to work with. There's a lot of free stuff out there. There are also a lot of like paid templates. There's some that I've paid, I mean, not a whole lot of money, but like 25, $50, but they're very intricate. In the beginning, I mean, this really depends on your type of business, but something very simple where you can do like a bottom-up forecast. Travis actually recently created an article about that. But basically, the way that I'm creating like my projections are based on a lot of assumptions. So if I'm talking e-commerce, I say, all right, if I drive 100 people to my website, on average, based on industry standards, 2 to 3% of them are going to become customers. Perfect. My average order size, I expect to be $50. How do I know that? Because I had a brand before, right? And I know people that are in the space. Okay. Of those people, I expect 25% of them to come back for repeat orders. That alone gives me a model that I can start modeling out. Then I can look at, all right, how am I going to hit 1,000 people? Well, what are my marketing channels? I've got social media content, I've got PR, I've got some paid social, and you kind of just model things out like that in addition to your fixed costs. And that's how I pretty much just, it's very back of the napkin, but it's all you really need.
Well, thank you so much for that great answer.
No problem. Hope we
Yeah,
help.
thank you. I'm
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
like building this MVP. It's like helping startups, founders and entrepreneurs to figuring out their financial projections. It's just an early stage. It's still an MVP, and this is why I'm like I really enjoyed your presentation here. So yeah, so
Thank
I'll
you.
be
If you need a
glad
beta
to.
user, let me know.
Yeah, I would definitely do. Yeah, once
Okay.
I got it rolling, I'll start approaching people and getting to try to use it.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, man. Great question.
Thank you so much, Victor.
Hey, so I've noticed that a couple of people have joined, and I just want to apologize. The Eventbrite listing was originally for 1 p.m. Pacific time. It was supposed to be for noon. Sent out an update earlier today. So the presentation has already happened, but we are in the question and answer section. So for anybody that has joined within the last 5-10 minutes, please unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have. Even if we went over it in the presentation, happy to answer it now. And we will make the video of the presentation available to everybody, and I'll make sure to email the link out to the video to you all probably later today. So if you all have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask them or put them in the chat. Victor, while people are thinking about any questions that they have still, one of the questions I have is, what difference have you seen in making an MVP for like a business to consumer product versus a business to business product or service? Have you come across any of those in your research?
I guess what I like is compared to 10 years ago, the tools to make an MVP are so much easier, whatever industry you're in. In the past, even just to build a one-page website, you had to hire a developer, right, with HTML. Now you sign up for a service and you've got it within 10 minutes. The Mail Standard website, the MVP was a digital product, right? For the other food brands, they've been samples of the product as well as surveying. So the tools still apply. It's just more about how you can get that across whatever your industry is. It's getting that across with the tools that you have. So if it is B2B and you're interested in selling to lawyers, well, you can have a booking page. You can offer a free 30-minute consultation. And through that process, you continue to refine what your service and what your offering is. That felt very convoluted, but I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And Ritu, you have a question.
Yes, yes, I do. Really quickly. So, and I'm sorry for joining late. For some reason, I thought this was starting at 1 o'clock.
That was my
But
fault. I apologize for that. It was
no,
listed at the wrong time on Eventbrite, and then I changed it today. So
got
sorry
it.
about that.
No, no problem. Really quickly, though, I'm transitioning from a services only offering to a product offering, and so working my way through the a CRM workflow, sales performance management product for small businesses. Any key quick takeaways that you have? And I'll go through the presentation and I'll reach out to both of you. Definitely want to make sure I'll go through the material and circle back on any questions. So I'm taking down your contact information. But any key quick takeaways that Victor or Travis that you can share would be really awesome for me.
Yeah. So to summarize, you're going from service to a product business, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How is your product live yet? Is it still in the idea phase? Where are you in that?
No, so basically we are, there in terms of building out the modules and offering the solution out to the market. It's just that I've been working with enterprise and I see like the small businesses struggling a lot with how to manage their CRM, how to manage their sales, how to manage their workflow, approvals, payroll, data. So my thought process there was, if I can learn from anybody else's experience. I already do have a couple of clients lined up, but they just sort of, as you say, blessings, they came to me versus me going out to do targeted marketing. But as a company, if there are any suggestions that you have on how to approach it, or things like, that are not on my radar right now, any suggestions that you have would be great.
No, great question. And Travis, if you want to jump in after, I think you could give some good perspective as well. The way I would think about it would be kind of like the process I went through in the presentation. It's who is your customer, right? Like how can you be very specific and what is the biggest pain and problem that they are facing? And that happens through having conversations. I'm not sure if you had a chance to survey or to have just conversations about what alternative tools they're using right now, how much they're paying, what is their biggest frustration with this space, right? Like what is your biggest pain point? And maybe it's not all the services that you're offering. Let's say you're offering 5 different services. You might find that people have the most pain in 1 or 2 areas. So what I would do, step 1 is talk to people, get them on the phone and just understand their pain points. Then look at your solution and ask yourself, is my solution addressing these pain points specifically?
Okay, got it.
Maybe, yeah, right? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not apparent to the customer, right? There's a lot of things you can continue to do, but then I would look at what is a simple way to test that, and then get real life feedback. All of that should help.
Got it.
Travis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, just to reiterate what you said, I mean, when you are doing interviews with potential customers, actual customers, a lot of the times entrepreneurs, they'll default to asking them what they think about their product or service. And that's, it should be part of it, But the main thing is to really ask what the issues are that your customers are having. What Victor said, what are your pain points? And that way you can really figure out what is bothering your customer, and you can figure out different solutions for them based off of that information. So that would be the big thing from me. And then beyond that, you're transitioning from services to a product. I would definitely reach out to all of your clients that you're currently offering services to, and sit down with them and talk with them. And it doesn't have to be long. I mean, 20, 30 minutes. If you could talk with them for longer, great, but you don't need to. But having those conversations, doing that customer discovery is really key to the whole MVP process.
Got it. Got it. And then as a company, and sorry if there are any other questions, jump in, but as a company, anything you think should be on my radar, working with enterprise versus working with small business, or working in services versus implementation versus, now doing a product from a MVP perspective. Anything else you want to add to? I'm taking away get their feedback, know the pain points, so that you're sort of doing a targeted approach. But even as a company from an operations perspective or go-to-market strategy, or if there are any other suggestions you have for an MVP, that would be great to hear.
Right. One of the things, and this is something, again, if you guys have all just joined, there was a mistake that I made in posting the event. It said it was starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, but it actually started at noon, and I only found out about it last night, so the update came out this morning. But one of the things that Victor talks about, and we'll send the video for the presentation out to everybody, is when you are starting your MVP, your minimum viable product, is that you should really hyper focus in on a specific subset of your market. And so you may be creating something that you think can appeal to small business, solo entrepreneurs, big businesses, medium, all kinds of businesses. But when you're really starting out, you should focus on one of those subsets of the market, at least at first, so that you could figure out the best solution for them. And it's really helpful in a number of ways. One is that it narrows your focus down into a specific customer. So you could dedicate all of your efforts to figuring out a solution for those small businesses of 15 or 20 employees or less. And then as you're able to grow that, maybe you could expand it out beyond to medium-sized businesses and beyond. Or if you're focused on enterprise solutions for large businesses, then you focus solely on that. It depends on where you want to focus in on at first. So I think that was something that Victor talked about during his presentation that was really spot on. Do you have anything to add to that, Victor?
No, I agree. I think especially when we're very ambitious, which a lot of people in this group are, we think everything. I want to do enterprise. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to offer this and this and this. I would take that energy and hyper focus and really build traction in one specific sub segment, and that can help build something else. The example of Male Standard, we were a grooming blog, right, where we talked about men's grooming. We became the leader in men's grooming, and then we evolved to other verticals and became a lifestyle. I think Authentic People has a question. Authentic Home, sorry.
Hey, thanks, Travis, and it's good to see you, Victor. And
what's up, man?
Good to see you, Willie.
See you.
I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for this information. It's always good to get a refresher on things, and I'm so grateful for what the Entrepreneurship Society provided me when I was there with Classic Gentlemen. Now, what Victor was talking about, the hyper focus. We were doing events, we were doing marketing and branding, we were all over the place, and now we hyper focused into an ad agency with emphasis on billboards. And so the MVP product, this is more so just really like kind of like giving you guys the Entrepreneurship Society, it's Roses, John, and Victor, and you, what you got in mind as well. And really a call to action. I am doing an event with TEDx. If anyone wants any information, it's going to be in Huntington Beach. I talked to Trav, and the Entrepreneurship Society is a part of it. We are doing a mixer on the 26th in Newport Beach at the winery, and then on the 28th in HB. So if there's any business owners that want to go or brands that want to be a part of the actual 28th as well, reach out to Travis. He has my information as well. That he can give to the group. I don't know if you can do that, Trav, after kind of send them info about it.
Yeah.
I think it's full circle for me to be coming back to my alma mater. And like Victor says, Classic Gentleman was for 5 years, we put our blood, sweat, and tears, and then we pivoted into working in the cocktail industry with Christian, who was a part of this as well, with Mix to Chris, Mix Masters, and now it led me here. So for those entrepreneurs that's throwing money at stuff, like Victor said, don't stop. Keep going.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out for sure. So I just wanted to kind of just chime in and say that, and thank you again for that focus. And Trav, if you could send me information, because I didn't even know you were part of an investment group as well. We've been selling billboards for the past 2 years, so we have a significant amount of revenue. So I am looking for anybody that angel investor, people that want startup as well. So I forgot that you were a part of that. So it was good that I was on here for just a refresher. It's good to be back home. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Willie, can you put the link to your TEDx event in the chat so that people can see it?
Yeah. I'll send you guys right now my email address, because it's email address, and then I'll send the website as well.
Yeah, and I'll definitely reach out to you on your venture as well.
Appreciate it.
Sounds good. So does anybody else, well, first start off, Victor, how are you doing on time?
I'm good. This is great.
All right, so we got a little bit more time. Does anybody else have any questions for Victor or myself? Ideally, you want Victor to answer the question. He's going to do a much better job at it than I do. But if you have any questions for either of us, please let us know. I'll give you guys 5-10 seconds to find the mute button.
I have a question. This is Guru. I was trying to find a way to raise my hand. I couldn't.
No worries.
That works.
You unmuted yourself, so this works just as well. What's your question, Guru?
So I heard you guys say that, narrow your focus down to a specific group of customers instead of widening out. Does that also apply to the type of service I'm offering? So I want to start as small as possible to as small a target audience as possible, and then spread out from there, right? That's kind of what you guys are advising.
Yeah. Can you give a little more context? What is your business? Maybe I can give more specific advice.
It's primarily at one fine day, it'll be about disease prevention through lifestyle changes, weight management, etc. But right now, I'm not sure where to start my attention on. I was thinking just focus on people with diabetes, for example, and that too, just a very specific thing to offer. Just control their diet first, right, and then go into their other underlying issues. So I'm just struggling a little bit on where to start.
Such a great question. So there's a couple of ways that I've tried. One way is look at what the biggest pain point is. So you're looking at 10 options, right? Where is the strongest level of problem, right? The strongest pain that you can solve. If it is weight management, if it is diabetes, if it is longevity, who is facing that problem in a way where it's so painful that they're trying to find a solution, right? There's that top-down approach. And the bottom up is also, what are you most passionate about? I'm not saying that being passionate about something is all you need to be successful, but it could point you towards the direction to go, right? So is there something that just resonates with you, and maybe explore that? Or like I said, look at where the biggest problem is and prioritize by problem.
Okay.
Does that help?
Right. So it does, definitely. If I put myself in their shoes, what is 1 out of 10 problems that I'd rather get rid of first?
Yeah, or you can look at data, right? You can look at trends. So if you have them in a vertical and you're looking at diabetes, longevity, just list out the things that you're trying to do, and then do research amongst them. Do a Google trend search and see which one is rising. Look at market research reports. You can find a lot of them for free and just look for diabetes statistics. And you'll get information on how much people are spending, the rates of growth. I think that'll allow you to compare factually across verticals and then pick one vertical to go after.
Okay, great. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for jumping in.
Very much, Guru. Does anybody else have any questions for Victor?
All right.
So, well, I was just going to keep the silence going. I know that most people are unnerved by the silence. I've
was
learned
one
how
of
to
them.
enjoy it because you know, when you're a professor, even for a couple of years, and mostly during COVID times, you ask a question of the class and then you just get 30 blank stares for about 5 minutes. So you get used to it. Yeah, so thank you everybody for attending. Thank you very much, Victor. This was a speech from the CSUF Startup Incubator speaker series. And again, we talked about the incubator a little bit at the beginning, but just to close the loop on that. So the incubator, our main thing that we do there is we help entrepreneurs go from concept to launch. There is a cost for those services, but for the $5,000 cost, you get a 6-month engagement with the incubator, which includes weekly meetings with a coach, like somebody like Victor or myself or Curtis or Mayan. And you also get one of our consulting projects that are headed up by our professors and include the work from our students and their mentors as well. And it's a really great program that has helped. Where are we at now, Victor? I think we've helped over 100 different entrepreneurs with their startups. It doesn't guarantee success by any stretch of the imagination. This is a very high risk thing that you're getting into by becoming an entrepreneur, but it's worth it in the end. So that's it for me. Victor, any last words?
Yeah, no. If you guys are interested, I put a link to our calendar. We can have a discovery call, learn about your business, and see if you'd be a fit. But in terms of this, thank you guys for the time. I know it's during the middle of the day on a Wednesday. I appreciate you guys being here, and hopefully you guys got some value out of the presentation.